Welcome to the newsletter. Ukrainians plan to respond to the threat of nuclear war. On Channel HT New, as hostilities became increasingly fierce and unpredictable, Ukrainians regularly talked about nuclear threats and began to plan for such a disaster. Dmytro Bondarenko sat quietly, saying he was ready for the worst of the coming winter. Under his rollaway bed and in nearly every other corner of his apartment east of Kiev, he stocked up on water and ready-to-eat food. He also kept rolls of tape ready to seal the windows from fallout. He also has a gas stove and walkie-talkie for camping. Bondarenko even had an AR-15 rifle and shotgun along with cartridges for self-defense. The spare tires and fuel tanks were kept in the washing machine by Bondarenko in case an urgent need to leave the city was needed. "Any preparation is aimed at giving me a better chance of survival," he said, wearing a knife and a first aid kit. As the Ukraine conflict enters its 9th month, many people in Ukraine no longer ask whether their country has been subjected to a nuclear attack. What they had to do was prepare for that utopian scenario. At dinner tables and in bars, people often talked about which cities would be the most likely targets, or what weapons could be used. Many, like Bondarenko, are stocking up on supplies and making plans to ensure survival. No one wanted to believe that was possible, but it seems to have been on the minds of many in Ukraine, which witnessed the world's worst nuclear accident at Chernobyl in 1986. Of course, Ukraine is very concerned about this threat, because we know very well who we are dealing with, Presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak said in an interview with the AP news agency. The Kremlin recently accused Ukraine of preparing a dirty bomb, an explosive to disperse radioactive material and instill fear in Russian-controlled areas. Kiev vehemently denies and says such statements are more likely a sign that Moscow is preparing for a similar move and blames Ukraine. Horrible Chernobyl memories. Nuclear anxiety evokes painful memories of Chernobyl survivors, when one of the 4 reactors exploded just about 100 kilometers north of Kiev, releasing large amounts of radiation. Svitlana Boshko, a 26-year-old journalist in Kiev, was 7 months pregnant at the time of the Chernobyl incident. Fears about nuclear radiation kept Boshko worried for the rest of her pregnancy, and when her daughter was born, her first question was, "How many fingers does my baby have?" That daughter is now a mother of 1, and also left Kiev a month after Russia launched a special military operation in Ukraine. Still living in Kiev at the age of 62, Boshko hopes she will never have to go through something like that again. But all those worries returned when the Ukraine conflict broke out. "Once again, a feeling of sadness and helplessness overwhelmed me," Boshko said. The capital Kiev is once again preparing for a nuclear attack with more than 1,000 personnel trained to respond, said Roman Tkachuk, head of the capital's security service. He added that they have purchased a large number of potassium iodide drugs and protective equipment to distribute to people when needed. As hostilities become increasingly fierce and unpredictable, with the fact that high-level discussions from Moscow, Washington to Kiev are all about nuclear threats, the Ukrainian people also speak of this concern. Phrases such as strategic and tactical nuclear weapons, potassium iodide pills, anti-radiation masks, plastic raincoats, and sealed foods are frequently mentioned. Plan your survival. Bondarenko said he had begun planning for a nuclear disaster when Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, fell under Russian control. The 33-year-old app designer says he has enough supplies to last for several weeks and enough fuel to leave the country or move deep into the mountains if a nuclear disaster strikes. He left the Donetsk region a few years ago after the region fell into conflict and was hoping for a quiet life in Kiev. But the COVID-19 pandemic forced him to live more isolated in the apartment, and when the conflict broke out, Bondarenko accelerated his survival readiness plan. His supplies included 200 liters of water, potassium iodide to protect his thyroid from radiation, a respirator and disposable rubber boots to protect his feet from radioactive contaminated soil. Bondarenko said he couldn't be sure he would be safe from a Russian nuclear attack but believes it's better to be prepared. Websites posting information about tips to survive a nuclear disaster are getting more and more attention, while on TikTok there is a lot of information about people packing nuclear luggage to quickly evacuate and take out. Advice on what to do in the event of a nuclear attack. People who live near fierce front lines, such as those at Mykolaiv, say they often feel too tired to think about new threats, having endured near constant shelling. The city 500 kilometers south of the capital is the closest to Kherson and where the fiercest battles are being fought. The head of the regional regulator, Vitaly Kim, warned, "Believe it or not, we must prepare for the nuclear threat." He said regional officials are studying different scenarios and mapping evacuation routes. More than half of the population has been evacuated from Mykolaiv. Many of those who stayed, like 73-year-old Valentina, said they were too tired to talk about leaving now. She slept in a windowless basement with about 10 other neighbors. When asked about the threat of nuclear attack, she said, "Now I believe anything is possible." Another woman in the bunker said she couldn't seem to sleep at night in a bed made of stacked wooden slats because she was always thinking about the future. In Kiev, Boshko felt the same way. She's learned what to do in the event of a missile attack, stocked up on supplies of remedies for various chemical attacks, and has what she calls anxiety baggage. Includes essentials packed in case of emergency evacuation. "I'm very tired of fear. I just keep living to live. But if something happens, we will try to fight and survive." Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, share to support and update the latest videos from HT News channel.